This video is about noun clauses. Noun clauses. So as you can imagine, we should probably remember everything we know about nouns and everything we know about clauses. So just keep in mind, a clause always has a subject and a verb. It has an idea. And noun clauses are one type of dependent clause. So remember that those cannot exist by themselves. They have to connect to a main clause. And part of your challenge with noun clauses is to know how they fit inside the bigger sentence. Also remember what a noun is, how a noun functions in a sentence, because noun clauses act in a similar way. They can be subjects, objects, object of a preposition, and subject complement. So on this clause, I start with just a simple little sentence like she quit her job, and then I change it into a noun clause. I didn't know that she quit her job. So you can see that I added the word that, and the rest of it's the same. And maybe you can also notice that all of this is an object for the verb know. So we have subject, verb, object. The whole clause is the object. Sometimes we use questions. Why did she quit? I can make that a noun clause too. The question words change a little bit. You see the difference? Why she quit is not my business. In this case, the whole clause is the subject of the bigger sentence. So you have just a couple examples to start. Here, I'm showing each function of nouns that we have talked about. And on the right side, you can see an example in red with just a noun or a noun phrase. And you can see a sentence with a noun clause in green. So how much money she makes is not known. So remember, you can always find a subject and a verb. She makes. Most of the time you'll see that or a WH word. So how is a WH word. And in this case, you see it at the beginning of the sentence. You see the word is right after. So you can figure out that this clause is the subject of the whole sentence. Some people have too much credit card debt. That's an object. But the noun clause below is also an object. Some people don't know how much they waste in credit card interest every year. Okay, then you can see examples with object of a preposition and subject complement. So in each case, you can see the noun clause in green. I think you can see that noun clauses help us to add more information. They help us to be a little bit more specific and precise. So that's one thing that's listed here. We represent statements or questions that are embedded in a larger sentence. Noun clauses help us add details and complex information to sentences. And they can also help us to not only have the information, but to also add someone's idea about the information. You know that often they start with that. Often they start with WH words. Let's keep going. Okay, so here I have some just pieces of sentences. There are no noun clauses here yet, but we could certainly add them, right? In all of these places, we could add nouns or we could add noun clauses. The first one would be a subject complement with the be verb. The second one would be an object for the verb think. The third one would be the subject for the whole sentence. Same thing with the fourth one. And the fifth one would be an object. So I'll just brainstorm a couple quick examples. and you should brainstorm others. The problem is that he doesn't have enough time to study. I think that he should make time available. The fact that he doesn't have time makes me worry. How much money she makes is none of his business. And I wonder why he wants to know. Okay, so I just did a few examples. We could do many, many other examples, of course. I think you heard me start all of those with either that or a WH word. Okay, so here are several examples with that. This is when we're taking a statement and putting that statement inside a bigger sentence. So I've got the different functions listed, and then below each one you see an example and you see the noun clause underlined. I think that the most common is to use the noun clause as an object. I think this is super common. People know that. People think that. People say that. People explain that. This is very, very common. We also have subject complements. Some of them use adjectives. And the next one also uses adjective, but it uses impersonal it, and then the be verb and an adjective. I think using the that clause as a subject by itself, it is possible, but it is not very common. I think it's much more common to add the word the fact that he exercises regularly. Okay, so you can take more time and look at those. Let's keep going. Okay, along with that, there is a very special type of sentence that we sometimes use. This is like a little side issue. I'm including it here because this is formal language. This is grammar that is sometimes included on things like the TOEFL test. And this is grammar that honestly a lot of native speakers don't use correctly. This could be impressive. If you are able to use this grammar, you could really impress people with your English. So I want to help you do that. We have certain verbs. Some of them are listed here on the left. And we have certain adjectives on the right. And those adjectives are used with it and the be verb. The thing that these have in common is that they are kind of important things that are kind of urgent things. They're very necessary, and they all have this idea that something is important, something is necessary, and hey, you need to do this. So the rule is that we use base form. Look at this example. Many health experts recommend that people not eat meat, not eat. That's base form. It's not simple present. So we don't use do not eat. We use not eat. That's a negative example. The next one is an affirmative example. The doctor insists that the patient see a nutritionist. Sorry, I have a spelling problem there for nutritionist. The noun clause starts with that the patient see a nutritionist. This verb is base form. It's not simple present or simple past. It's not future. It's just base form. Same thing with adjective. So this is a very specific and special kind of fancy way to use noun clauses. Okay, I think probably the most challenging part is when we have a question that we want to turn into a noun clause. Your book doesn't use this little formula, but this is the easiest way that I can explain it to you. Learn this little formula, QSV. QSV. Obviously, S is your subject, V is your verb. Q stands for question word. This is the order that you must use when you want to make a noun clause that originated from a question. I think it's easy to remember this little formula because these letters, if you think about the English alphabet, these are in alphabetical order, right? Q comes first in the alphabet, and then later S, and then later V. Okay, so on the left I have some simple questions. Question verbs in English are not easy because sometimes we have to use a helping verb, and the question verb looks very different from the statement, right? So I have some different examples with simple present, simple past. I have one with the be verb, one with past progressive. And then when you want to make a noun clause, so for example, if you start, he wants to know something, and what is the something? The something is the noun clause. So the green shows you how the verbs change. QSV, QSV. Notice that there's no helping verb for simple present and simple past. And also, even for verbs like the be verb that don't have a helping verb, the order of the words changes. This is something you have to practice. And if your original clause is a question, so in English we have two kinds of questions, right? We have WH questions and we have yes or no questions. If you have a WH question, obviously you're going to use the WH word. Where do you work is the simple question. Then here's the noun clause. He does not know where you work. QSV, where you work. If your question is a yes-no question, like do you have a job? Just a simple question. If you want to create a noun clause, you're going to use if or whether. He does not know if you have a job. He does not know whether you have a job. Those are the same. They are the same. Just make sure that you spell weather correctly. This is not the same as the weather outside, right? Don't mix up the spelling. Okay, if you get into the details, you learn that it's possible to add the words or not. But my advice to you is don't worry about this. So look, sometimes we use if, sometimes we use whether, and I'm showing you here that when you use if you want to, you can put or not at the very end of the sentence. It's not required at all. You can do the same thing with whether. The professor can tell you whether you should take that class or not. It's totally optional to use or not. The only weird thing that's different is you cannot put if or not together. So this does not exist, but we can put whether or not together. I would say just keep your life simple and don't even use or not at all. It's not necessary. Okay, with WH clauses, here are a few more examples. Used as an object. No one knows exactly why he was fired. QSV, right? The question is why they hired him in the first place. QSV. Again, this one is a complement. So this question is equal to this subject. And then the last one, why he was fired, is probably not our business. In this case, it's a subject. That's the end. Go and practice a bunch of noun clauses. See you later.